I am pretty lucky today because I got invited by Cannondale here in Den Haag at Lola's, a perfect bike cafe, to have a first ride on the new Cannondale Tesoro. This is going to be for the season 2019-2020. And today it's just going to be a very quick ride through the Hague, all the nice spots and of course also the beach. A full review will be on later. With every product launch comes a product presentation with one of the specialists of the brands, of course. And they tell so much more, they know so much more than there is just in a press release. And that is something that I always like. And after this, it's time to start biking together with all my colleagues. It's actually nice to be back in Den Haag again, The Hague. I've lived here for quite a long time and this is actually Noordeinde, which is also the place where the work palace of our king is. And this is absolutely brilliant. And now we're at the place where our government is. The big building in front of us is called the Ridderzaal. And I reckon it's time for a group picture now.
Hij staat niet aan.
And now we are continuing through the Haagse Bos, the Hague Forest, which is one of the nicest parks we have in Den Haag. And this indeed is a very sweet tour around Memory Lane, because behind this park, it's a tennis park, next to it is the American Embassy. This is a football park, but behind this there was the house where I lived for about, I don't know, 7 years or so, until my first daughter was born. And then we thought, let's move to the countryside. And this looks pretty brilliant and green, but Den Haag is a pretty crowded town. So that's why we left. And from the town through the parks, we end up at the coast, which we have a lot of sand dunes. It's to protect our country, which is lower than sea level in most parts, against the sea, of course. And this is actually the place where a lot of people were killed during the war, the Second World War, of course. And it's a place that I really like because it is so tranquil here compared to basically the rest of The Hague itself. And what I also noticed is, now let's talk about the bike itself, is that I've been riding on, well, basically tarmac, which was really smooth. I've been riding on a bike park, which was also very smooth, but now we've done some gravel and now some stones, just pavement, which is irregular, and well, basically the front fork does quite a job because it is a suspension fork. But also the big balloon tires, they also dampen quite a lot of, well, all irregularities of the surface. So for a first ride, it is pretty okay for Cannondale. Now, a group process is not always my process, so I left the group and started biking on my own. Therefore, I missed the fantastic, iconic Peace Palace. And I even missed my beloved Scheveningen. Really, biking in the sand is something that everybody should do once in a lifetime. And of course, the pier. But I was a happy biker again, and that resulted in two things. Let's start with number one. As said before, this is not a review, this is just a first ride. So let me tell you about the details of the Tesoro in a glance. It's an aluminium frame, and in the down tube is the battery pack, of course, which makes it look very, very nice. It doesn't look like an e-bike in that respect as well. Also because the mid-engine, which is a third generation Boss, gets smaller and smaller all the time. So this is also like a normal crank. You don't see that this is a e-bike. Now there is a full suspension front fork, which is adjustable by a knob to put it into suspension mode or just to make it like a lockout. It's a soft lockout because if you have a bump it still does something. And there is also a possibility for a preload.
Then the handlebar, the stem itself, it's adjustable in height a little bit. The handlebar itself, it is really wide as far as I noticed for the moment, so it gives really a lot of control. On the left side of the handlebar, there is the plus and the minus to change between all the support modes the Bosch engines got, from off to eco for the long-lasting battery life, the sport modus, no, the tour modus, the sport modus and the turbo mode, which is really fantastic, because here in the dunes we've got some descents and climbs and we've got a lot of wind in the Netherlands at the moment. So the support mode in turbo really gives some speed. Sometimes 40 k's I've managed to do with the engine, of course, the battery pack and also my legs. Now that was the front part. Let's move over to the other side. On the right side of the handlebar there is the shifter, and it's a up and down shifter with 2 levers. It goes to the derailleur, which is a Shimano Deore one, of course. The cassette, it is a 10-speed cassette. It ranges from 11Ds from the smallest to, I believe, 42, if I remember correctly, to the largest one, which give it a really wide range, even if you go into more mountainous areas. Of course, the Netherlands, except for the dunes and the southern part of our country, well, it's quite flat here, of course. Then the brake system, of course, they are hydraulic ones and they are also from Shimano. Now, it is a 29er with big balloon tires and they give a lot of comfort. On tarmac, of course, you don't have too much of road resistance, but also on gravel roads and on these, well, we call them child's heads, kinderkopjes. I'll try to find the translation, but that's really uneven paved roads, basically. The seat post, it is a suspension one. Normally I don't like it, but this one doesn't bother me, to be honest, so that's the first impression. Then there is a really good cargo loader on the rear. It's good for 20 kilograms of luggage, so if you've got 2 Ortlieb panniers or Vaude panniers, you can use this bike as a real trekking bike as well. And that is, of course, something that I will test later on when I get this bike for a full review. The lighting, because it's an electric bike, the lighting is, well, very much okay. It's got a good front light and it's got a rear light, which is, well, basically well protected by the luggage carrier itself. That's something that I like. And there is one special feature as well, if I remember correctly from this morning, and that is that the sidekick, it's mounted on a detachable sort of plate. It's a construction that if you break the construction in the sidekick, which seems to happen sometimes, you don't have to buy a new frame, which is bloody expensive, of course. So that's a very cool trick. Now, this was the Cannondale Tesoro in short, and with the winds picking up, I am going to go down back to Lola's again, just to get a nice last cup of coffee again, and then probably head out home and wait till this one arrives in a package so I can test it for more than a month.
And as usual in the Netherlands, it's quite windy again, you might have heard it. But then the e-bike, well, it's really a comfortable one because it helps you. It's like getting wind in the back the whole time. And also, you know, the dunes, they are pretty steep at some places. And that's where you get also the help from the e-bike. Just put it into, I'm riding it mostly at the time in eco, but just press it into tour or even into turbo mode. And you get all, and now we're going down, yeah! And now this is a cycle path with people who are on foot. They seem happy. Full wind in my face. And still 40 plus. With one hand. And this is what commuting is probably all about. Traveling on a very smooth cycle lane amongst other traffic by car, but getting there probably in the same time. And from here I'm started in Wassenaar. I still got a few kilometers left to go to Den Haag Centrum, which is about 10 k's from Wassenaar to Den Haag Central. So let's pedal on. Now, if you ever visit The Hague, then this is the museum you should see. It's the Lauwman Museum, and it is absolutely packed with a lot of beautiful cars. It's a private collection, and it's quite a new museum as well, but built in an old, typically style that is typical for The Hague itself. So if you ever go there, go to the Lauwman Museum. Remember the happy biker? Well, that has some consequences, because I was so happy that my detour was so long that I totally forgot about lunch. I gobbled my starter, loved my main course, and even loved my dessert even more. And in the meantime, everybody was talking about gadgets and doing their Instagram thing. And after this, we biked back to Lola's.
So I am back at Lola's again, and I had a wonderful day in the city that I lived in for such a long time. First, small conclusion on the new Cannondale. I like the frame, it's very stiff. I like the comfort, it's sporty but not too much sporty. I like the engine, it's very subtle. What I don't like about the engine is something that it makes quite a lot of noise, to my opinion. Then the front forks. Well, I'm not really sure if a full suspension front fork is really the right choice for this kind of bike. But then it's on it, so why bother about it? What I do like is the fact that it really handles very well. Capable brakes, the Dior system, the 10-speed, it works fine. And the Bosch engine for the function between the Eco, Tour, Sport and Turbo one. Well, that's a very known value by now. But this is just a first impression, and I will get back to you later with the full review. But then I want to have the bike for at least a month, so I can do really some kilometers. Today I did about 50. For a trekking bike like this one, I think it should be a little bit more. So stay tuned. Ciao, ciao. One thing I did not mention yet is that if you are on a bike, wear a helmet. In case of an accident, car drivers don't always see you. It prevents a lot of injuries. So be smart, wear a helmet and be an example.